We are Penn State. Penn State was at Rutgers yesterday. Uh, I went to the game. That's why there was no live play-by-play watch-along reactions yesterday at 3:30 as the game kicked off. From SHI, you can add a T to that stadium in Piscataway, New Jersey, the birthplace of college football. But here today, we're going to, rather than sit down and watch the game and still do a live play watch along reaction stream, after the fact, it's going to be more so of a recap than anything. I'm going to add in, some of the pregame notes I had, planned to say, as I normally would for a, live stream. So, obviously, if you can't tell, voice is a little hoarse and sore from hooting and hollering, cheering on the blue and white, as Penn State defeated Rutgers by the final score of, just like everyone thought it was going to be, a high-scoring back and forth game, 40-36. Your final. Penn State's now 6-6, ending the season as they started it on a 3-game winning streak before that 6-game skid in between. But they're bowl eligible, and a week from now they'll find out their bowl destination. We'll get into that in a little bit. Obviously, the coaching carousel is spinning. Other schools have been announcing who they're hiring to become their next head football coach. Penn State has yet to do that. I assume that'll be sometime soon, just don't know officially when, if that's going to be today, tomorrow, sometime this week. Maybe they let it drag out a little bit. Make an announcement after the conference championship games that are now set for next weekend. Got a couple games on Friday and the rest on Saturday, because then a week from now, as today is the final day of the month of November 2025, it's November the 30th. It is Sunday morning, almost lunchtime, before these NFL games kick off. And once again, obviously, wasn't home yesterday to watch the Penn State game because I was at the Penn State game. So we're just going to do a little bit of a recap. But as mentioned, I'm going to add in some of the pregame notes that I would normally have had for a preview along the way before we get into that full recap. And I mean, it was a damn good game. Give credit to Rutgers. They had Penn State right where they wanted them at, and probably thinking to themselves, how the hell did we lose this game? But it was because of the lone turnover and points off of it as the difference. So without any further ado, I guess we'll get into it here. Just thanks for tuning in and listening to this. This is an audio only. You can call it what the title says, even though technically it is that, but it's also not that. But, college football, Penn State, Rutgers, play watch long reaction stream, but more so a recap once again. But thanks for tuning in and listening. As always, I'm your host, Encyclopedia Sports, Coy and Luke 96. Be sure to like, follow, and subscribe on social media. That'll be Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Hit that red subscribe button, notification bell next to as well, stay up to date. Links in the description below. Thumbs up button, share, hashtag college football, hashtag Penn State. Chat questions and comments, super chat, super sticker, super like, super thanks. Always greatly appreciated, as well as this video is powered by Rogue Energy, HopeKThrifts, and Dead and Hungry. Their links are also in the description below as well, so be sure to go check them out. And then, as I would normally say, also be sure to scan the QR code behind me, but this is audio only, hence the black screen, no video. But you can also, rather than clicking the QR code, because you can't right now, click the first top link in the description below. It's as good as the QR code. So hit hype if available, also on your YouTube screen. I say if available because for some people it is, some people it's not. I don't know why that is, YouTube, but hit hype this video, and once again, thanks for tuning in. But yeah, Penn State Rutgers, battle of 2 5 and 6 teams, fighting for a postseason berth. But Penn State controls their own destiny. Penn State is in control. Penn State needs to win to make a bowl game. They need to finish strong, which they did. They desperately needed a defensive stop the whole entire game yesterday. Really didn't get one until the fumble, scoop, and score that went about 65 yards to the house for 6. And then momentum's a real thing, and the defense really locked down after that. And I mean, Rutgers was still making plays, but then there's a turnover on downs later on, and then Penn State ran the clock out. Yeah, from the birthplace of, college football, we had Penn State and Rutgers go toe-to-toe yesterday at 3:30 on BTN, as Penn State was a 14.5-point favorite. The over-under was set at 55.5. Rutgers plus the points and the over hit for anybody interested in that. But now, pregame, and now postgame, here's some stats for you. Penn State versus Rutgers all time. They were obviously 32-2, but now you can make that 33-2, as Penn State has never lost at Rutgers, I might add. It came close to happening yesterday. The 2 losses for the Blue and White against the Scarlet Knights. Rutgers beat Penn State in Happy Valley in 1918 and 1988, but not even at home in 2025. And then the way the Big Ten scheduling is at this moment, I don't know the next time they'll play each other. But yeah, Rutgers gave Penn State all they could handle. Penn State on November the 29th, which was yesterday, that's what we're doing this today, because I was at the game once again. Penn State 3-6 all time on the 29th of November, but now you can make it 4-6 on that very date, because Penn State won 40-36, and now the season continues. But what's next, though? Well, first off, the stadium renovation is going to continue, and still on track to be done by the start of the 2027 season. The coaching search, like I just mentioned, I assume they'll have someone hired here soon. At this rate, with the way the coaching search has gone, and other coaches signing extensions, and the rest of the coaching carousel, at this rate, I don't even know, who Penn State's going to hire. I mean, I've said my piece on that now a couple times, with potential candidates, whether they're still available or not. That's for Penn State to decide on if, they're going to still want to hire this person, or, hire somebody else. Obviously there's a few names floating around right now. But we'll find out soon enough in that regard. And then we're going to talk about that then in detail. So just stay tuned for that whenever that does officially happen. It might be sometime today. It might be tomorrow. Maybe sometime this week. Like I said, they might drag it out. It might be after next weekend's games. Only time's going to tell. We'll see. They've been keeping it close to the vest. They have. But as I've mentioned in the past too, hey, there's still football games to be played with this very team. With Terry Smith as the interim head coach and all the players that are playing. So it's still take care of business. The rest will sort itself out. But obviously, if Penn State would have won yesterday, which they did, to to become bowl eligible now at 6-6, they'll be going to a bowl game. And bowl game, like I said, to be announced next Sunday, December the 7th. And if I'd have to guess, with them, and I believe Northwestern is the only other 6-6 team in the Big Ten. Obviously, Northwestern has a tiebreaker over Penn State because Wildcats beat the Lions 22-21 the day prior to James Franklin getting fired back mid-October. Obviously, there's a couple other Big Ten teams that Penn State also lost to, so there's tiebreakers in that regard as well. But then remember, Penn State also travels. But it's probably going to be either Detroit for the Motor City Bowl, the Little Caesars Pizza Bowl, or whatever the hell it's called now, or back to NYC for the Pinstripe Bowl. That would be Penn State's second ever appearance at Yankee Stadium for that bowl game. Obviously, it was at the end of James Franklin's first year at Penn State in 2014, and then potentially to come full circle after Franklin gets fired, another 6-6 campaign, they could potentially be going back to the Bronx. Only time will tell. I mean, Nashville potentially as well for the Music City Bowl, but I feel more it's going to be one of those first two sites, from Detroit to NYC for the Motor City Bowl, as it used to be called, Little Caesars Pizza Bowl, because Little Caesars is based out of Detroit, with their deep dish pizza, among the rest of the menu, but can't go wrong with some pizza. Like I said, I don't even know what that bowl game's called, but I know they've never played in it before. That bowl game is the day after Christmas, so less than a month from now, on the 26th. Kick time will be at 1 o'clock for that, inside of Ford Field. And then the Pinstripe Bowls the following day, 2 days after Christmas, on the 27th, at Yankee Stadium at high noon. The Music City Bowl is, I believe, the following Tuesday or Wednesday towards the end of the year. I don't think it's New Year's Eve. It might be. I think it's the day prior or 2 days before that. But then that'd be like a mid-afternoon game, in the middle of the week, for bowl season, just because that's how the schedule is. So those are three potential destinations just based off of their record and then, the head-to-head tiebreakers on other teams in the conference that are also bowl eligible, and then did you beat them or did you not? But I feel like I said, it's going to be more so one of those first two. So we'll see what happens a week from now when the bowls are announced. Obviously, the college football playoff going to be revealed then as well. But no, now back to these notes I had as Penn State had the chip on their shoulder. Won back-to-back games against Michigan State and Nebraska with Penn State pride. Terry Smith wants blue-collar Penn State football the way it used to be. As Penn State faced former Penn State assistant and current Rutgers head coach in a second stint in Greg Schiano. Because remember, he's at Rutgers, went to Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and then had to work his way back up as an assistant. But then he still goes back to Rutgers. This tenure hasn't been great or as good as his first tenure in Piscataway. But even though Rutgers is barely winning, the past, 5 years that he's been back, it's still more than what they won in between those two stints. So, Rutgers football the past 25 years, you think about it, has been Greg Schiano. And the Bucknell grad, he was a former Penn State assistant before he got the Rutgers gig. And Penn State took on his Scarlet Knights as it was senior day at the birthplace of college football. But Penn State, complimentary sound football. You You got to be balanced with consistency, momentum, and rhythm. Keep it simple, take care of business, and finish strong. The motto of this team right now is to finish. Just find a way to win. You got to do. I don't care what it's going to take. Find a way to win and finish. All that matters at the end of the day is winning, because winning is the name of the game. Nobody, all people ever remember is whether you won or lost. And as long as there's a win and win-loss column, that's what matters, because losing sucks. But Penn State, as mentioned, needed to continue to build off momentum with those back-to-back wins over the Spartans and the Cornhuskers, and continue to play Penn State football. One play at a time, starts up front, controlling the line of scrimmage, and run the damn ball. But the fat man, Kaytron Allen, who is now the all-time career rushing yards leader in Penn State football history, as Penn State's had their long line of success at the tailback position. But then also, from the fat man Kaytron Allen, Nick Singleton was going for a record yesterday. We'll get to that in a minute, but run the ball, open up the passing game. Grunkmeyer has been playing better as the season has progressed weekly, from his first start at Iowa, and then at Ohio State, and then remember they almost beat Indiana, but because of a spectacular catch in the back of the end zone, that 6-game skid turned from 3-3 to 3-6, and then they needed to win out, which they have, and now they're 6-6, and bowl eligible once again. But defensively, stopped the run yesterday. They had a hard time getting off the field on defense. They did have a hard time stopping the run and getting pressure on the quarterback, and forcing bad throws and whatnot, because Rutgers wasn't running all over the Penn State defense as much as Penn State was running over their defense. But then their passing attack, we'll get to the stats as well, but it just seemed better than what Penn State had. But Penn State also had a couple passing touchdowns, as well. Like I said, Grunkmeyer has been progressing each game, taking over for the injured Drew Aller. But then, create and capitalize off turnovers. There was one turnover yesterday, and points were scored off of it, and it ended up being the difference in the long run. As Penn State did take their points and kicked a couple field goals, they got a 2-for-1 there prior to halftime. 6 points to 6 points. You would have liked to, had a few more, but they kicked the field goal going into the half, got the ball back to begin the second half, and kicked another field goal on that drive. That took up half the third quarter, I might add, as well. So they were controlling the clock. We'll go over the final stats in a minute, but back to some of these pre-game notes before we get into actually what happened in full post-game. Before we sign off here. So once again, thanks for tuning in and listening. But it's still no longer, what do you have to lose? Yeah, their backs are still up against the wall, but play smart. It's, we're playing for our life to make a bowl game. Just find a way to win. They need to win out once again to make a bowl game, which they did. They're now 6-6, and they'll await their destination and be announced next Sunday. Because they've talked about the pencil and the finished product. Write the script. Penn State is in control. Whatever happens, they're in control. Leave it all on the field. Make the play and finish. As Kaytron Allen broke the all-time career Penn State rushing yards record last week. Now with 3,954 yards, but now only needs 46 yards to break 4,000 career rushing yards, and would become, and did become, only the 23rd Big Ten football player in history to do that 149th all-time for all of college football history, because the Fat Man had over 200 yards rushing yesterday, and it was for the first time since bad Journey Brown against Memphis in the Cotton Bowl prior to COVID. For the first time since then, a Penn State running back ran for over 200 yards in a single game, but the Fat Man did it yesterday to just not break the rushing record from a week ago, but now to surpass 4,000 career rushing yards in Penn State football history. Now he's the only one ever to do that as well. He finished officially, Katron Allen, 22 carries, 226 yards rushing yesterday, and a touchdown. Also had 2 catches, 12 yards out of the backfield. Nick Singleton, he needs 1 rushing touchdown to break the rushing touchdown record, and 1 touchdown to break the total touchdown record as well. But if he gets a receiving touchdown, he would still need a rushing touchdown to break that. But it would be nice, take out 2 birds with 1 stone and get the rushing touchdown, because then it'll count towards the rushing and the total touchdown record. He did that. Fat Man went over 4,000 career rushing yards, and then to cap off the drive, Singleton scored on the rushing touchdown. So then Singleton, as a Fat Man, broke the rushing yards record last week. 4,000 now in a career. Singleton, with the rushing touchdown at the end of that drive, broke the Penn State career rushing touchdown record and total touchdown record, both surpassing Saquon Barkley. And then Singleton would have also needed 136 yards to become number 1 in the career all-purpose yardage category, as Singleton finished with 9 carries for 86 yards rushing, and not 1 but 2 touchdowns. He had 1 later on in the game. And then he also had 2 catches, 23 yards receiving. So just short on that 136, but now only, probably 30 yards away, give or take, for him potentially becoming number 1 in the career all-purpose yardage, if he would play in the bowl game, which I believe both him and Fat Man would want to finish strong, but you just never know. But now on to the full recap, as Penn State was looking to get career program win. 949 yesterday, which they did. 40-36 your final score at Rutgers, as Terry Smith is now 3-3 as the interim head coach. Penn State is bowl eligible at 6-6. And we'll see if Terry Smith is going to get promoted from interim to permanent head coach, or Penn State's going to hire somebody else. We shall see. But from my vantage point yesterday, damn good seats. So shout out to, he knows who he is. But with everything I would normally say during a live stream, this is what happened for Penn State to Tony Soprano's Rutgers Scarlet Knights. And like I said, give credit to Rutgers once again. They had Penn State right where they wanted them at, as they were also fighting to make a bowl game. But now, full recap here. Rutgers had a touchdown drive to begin the game, as Penn State's defense had a hard time making stops, not getting off the field. Just not early, the whole entire game up until they got that stop later on and that scoop and score. But way too many defensive penalties. They couldn't cover the pass, save their life. Their one receiver had a spectacular catch down the sideline. But Penn State responded with a strong running game. It was 7-7. Singleton had a touchdown. Had 2 on the day. But Fat Man now 4,000 career rushing yards. He had over 200 for the game. As mentioned, Singleton broke the career rushing and total touchdown record on the same drive. As obviously Rutgers is in New Jersey. They're the state school in the Garden State. And they love their boss, Bruce Springsteen, and the one and man, John Jovi. What did I say? John Jovi. Yeah, John Bon Jovi. It's early, folks. Tired. And hey, still celebrating and talking about this Penn State win yesterday. So, just, about the bowl game, it's going to be either Detroit or NYC, and then the opponent is either a MAC or an ACC school. If they go to the Music City Bowl, they're playing somebody out of the SEC. But we'll see, and then, because if they decline a bowl bid, they're stupid. But, if you go and you lose, well, then it's a losing season at 6-7. But if you go and win, it's a winning season at 7-6. And who thought they'd be 7-6, when they were 3-6, because they had to win out and then go win the bowl game then too. But no, they love the boss, and John Bon Jovi. As Greg Schiano and all the Scarlet Knights were, wanted yesterday, either dead or alive, and the Lions roared and found a way to win. There were no turnovers by either team in the first half. There's only one turnover the whole entire game. We'll get to that later. But Penn State scored off of the Rutgers fake field goal. Rutgers, it was, 40-yarder, I'd say, going into their student section. I believe that's the south end zone at the stadium. And it's going towards the scoreboard. They have one big scoreboard at one end and then one small one at the other end. But they ran a fake field goal. Snap from the center to the holder, but he flipped it to the kicker out in the open, and then he got tackled out in the open space, and turnover on down. So Penn State scored off of the Rutgers fake field goal, went out 14-7. Rutgers responded, tied it at 14, and then Penn State went up again, 21-14. But then it slowed down there for a little bit. The team settled down and settled into the game. It was turning into a defensive showdown at that point in time. For what we didn't know, there's going to be twice as much points still be, scored as the game progressed. But Rutgers scored and tied it at 21. But then Penn State responded with a field goal drive before halftime, which was crucial in a 4-point game. If they would have, clock management-wise was pretty damn good. They got a couple first downs. Obviously, the clock stops under 2 minutes, at the end of the half. They had a couple timeouts. They did. They eventually called them. But then, I think if they would have, clocked it a time or two, they might have had a couple more seconds, to maybe run a play, maybe score a touchdown. But they do still get points at the end of the half yesterday anyway. As they kicked it, Barker was 2-2 on the day. Field goal before halftime, field goal coming out of the second half. 24-21, but Penn State got the ball back to begin the second half because they won the coin toss, deferred their option, their choice to the third quarter, and they needed to run the football and work clock. Because when you're on the road and you have a lead, you want to do just that, and that's running the football and working clock. As Penn State double-dipped, got the 2-for-1, and points are points, especially on the road as well. With another field goal early third quarter, and that drive also took up half the third. There's about 7-8 minutes left in the third quarter after they kicked it, so they went the distance and took up time, less time for Rutgers to do something. But then Rutgers responded and went up and their first lead since they were up 7-0 at 28-27. Penn State responded. Another Nick Singleton touchdown, though. They went for 2, though. Didn't get it. I get why they went for 2, because if they would have got it, it would have been a 7-point game at 35-28, but I'd rather have had the 6-point lead at 34-28 if you just kick it. Because if you don't get, which they didn't, you're only up 5, and I'd rather be up 6 and 5. But then if you can be up 7, okay. But Rutgers scored again. I might add though, went for 2 themselves, and they got it. So it's a 3-point game then, 36-33. And like I said, Penn State's defense desperately needed to make a stop. Because at this rate, it was mid-4th quarter. If Rutgers would have, drove and scored, timing-wise, who knows what's left for Penn State to go do something. But defensively, the whole entire game, they couldn't get off the field. But then they finally made a stop, got it on the first and only turnover of the game. It was a scoop and score, 61-yard fumble return for a touchdown for number 24, linebacker Mari Campbell for the Blue and White, North Carolina transfer, as Penn State then went up 40-36. 7:27 to go. And that actually held to be the final score of the game. But then Rutgers had that spectacular catch I mentioned. And thinking, okay, well, if they score on this drive, it might be over just depending on the time that's, going to be left. But then, obviously, they're down 4. Field goal going to cut it, so they got to score a touchdown. They go for it on 4th down. Don't get it. Turnover on downs. And then Penn State got the ball back with 3:55 to go, up 40-36. Needed to run the ball and work clock, make Rutgers call their timeouts. They did just that. Rutgers never touched the ball again on offense. But balls, talk about balls. Terry Smith, in as the interim head coach of the Blue and White Penn State Lions, taking over for James Franklin midway through the season. Going to finish as Franklin was at 3-3 before he got canned. Terry Smith 3-3 as the Penn State interim. But yeah, balls. Inside, the 15-yard line, had a 4th and short. All they needed to get was a first down to ice it and win the game. And they went for it on 4th and about 1.5 yards to win it. Ice it rather than, kick the field goal, go up 7, 43-36. Myself personally, I would have kicked it to go up 7. It's a 1-score game. But then you think about it, well, if you don't get it, they still have to drive the length of the field with a minute to go, no timeouts, touchdown wins it for Rutgers then at that rate. But even if you would have kicked it, they could have returned it, just not necessarily for a touchdown, but still a chance to drive and score. But then, hey, maybe they go for 2 and then you'd lose that way. But Penn State went for it on that 4th and short. Like I said, talk about balls. But control, because then they get the first down. Rappleyea had a touchdown early. He caught the pass in the flat, got the first down. And, they iced it at 40-36. Penn State needed out. And then the clock expired. And Penn State wins it 40-36 at Rutgers yesterday. I mean, Terry Smith probably thought, hey, ending this game on his own terms, whether he's getting the head coaching job or not, like, hey, we're going to go out and finish and get to 6-6 and bowl eligibility. And like I said, now they will await bowl selection 1 week from now on December the 7th. Like I said, probably going to be either Detroit or NYC, potentially Nashville, but I doubt it. We'll see. It's probably going to be one of those 3 bowl games, though, from the Motor City to the Pinstripe to the Music City. But yeah, we'll see what happens. And then talked about the coaching carousel a little bit. That's spinning. We'll see who Penn State ends up hiring. And we'll talk about that then. But in the meantime, as always, we are Penn State. So, yeah, rather than still afterwards sitting down and watching this game for, a few hours short, 30, 45-minute with my pregame stuff, but post-game recap of everything that happened as, Penn State defeats Rutgers, your final score once again, 40-36, as they're now 6-6, they're bowl eligible, and they will await bowl selection 1 week from now on December the 7th, in a game, site, and opponent still all to be determined. But obviously, once again, coaching search continues. People are going to still be talking about that until an announcement is made. But then all this week, it's going to be, well, did you see the latest Penn State bowl prediction? Where they're going to go, who they're going to play, so on and so forth. But they're going to get an extra game now. They're going to get extra practice. Obviously, players on the team, trench portal is going to be open. I'm sure you're going to be seeing a lot of that stuff, that just not for Penn State, but a lot of schools. Hey, this player has entered the transfer portal. But remember, transfer portal, technically, you can't go anywhere until January. So, whether you get in early, figure it out, or you wait it out, I mean, this year's team in 2025 is this year's team. Next year's team is going to be different. It's like that every year. But it's more turnover than ever before in college football. Just the way it is. Money with NIL has changed everything. But yeah, with the bowl eligibility, they'll get to go to a bowl game. They'll get extra practice and have a chance to finish even stronger than what they did the regular season, winning out just to make a bowl game. Now you really need to finish and go win 4 in a row and go win the bowl game against, like I said, an opponent still to be determined for the bowl game at the site of that respective bowl game, also still to be determined. So we'll see. It's all talk until the game's played. So just take care of business, for us to sort itself out. As always, thanks for tuning in and listening. Be sure to like, follow, and subscribe on social media if you haven't done so already. But that'll do it for myself, your host, Encyclopedia Sports, Cohan Luke 96, live right here on YouTube. But we are